Oh, hey everyone.
Just get it. And there we go. Perfect.
You have to know.
All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Sewing with Candace. Today we're going to be working on this cute Casablanca pattern. This is by Sally Tomato. I love this water bottle holder. I think it's super, super cute.
Model it.
I should model it. Oh my gosh.
Crossbody.
Okay, crossbody. Oh yeah, and it's adjustable, so you can make it whatever length you want it to be, and it's got this cute holder so you put your phone and all of your
2 zippers.
Yep.
Wallet,
everything in here. I would probably try to fit some diapers and
some baby wipes,
whatever you need could go inside of there. But it's really, really nice. Candace is going to talk about it. It's supposed to be for a 40-ounce
tumbler.
I think it's super cute. So we are going to go ahead and get started. But of course, I did not introduce myself. So my name is Cecily Havimana, co-owner of Sew Creative Lounge. We're the coach keepers of sewing and quilting with the mission of teaching the world to sew and quilt one stitch at a time. We do have this pattern on our website. It's available for pre-order. For some reason, I had ordered a good amount, and then before this live happened, they all sold out. So I was like,
out there.
Yeah, it's hot, right?
I need a water carry.
Exactly. So they are on pre-order. They'll be in by the second week of July. And we also are going to put together kits for you guys. So if you don't want to go through all of the headache of getting all of your hardware, your zippers, your webbing, your foam, or whatever, what was
air mesh.
The air mesh that you're going to use. We will have kits available for you guys as well. So you can go to our website, sewcreativelounge.com, type in Casablanca, and get everything you need to make this bag. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over because it is a lot.
It's a lot of pieces.
It's a lot of pieces.
It's a lot of instructions.
And a lot of fun at the same time. So, go ahead. All right. I'll see you all in the chat.
All right. Hello, everyone. As Cecily mentioned, I'm Candace, and again, we're going to do the Casablanca water cooler carrier. All right, this is going to be great for your cookouts. This is going to be great for your music festivals, everything. You can carry your water, all your information. This is even detachable. What makes it so cool is also all the beautiful hardware you get to use in making this. So you can carry it without the wallet if you just want to do the water carrier. Maybe you just want to do the wallet and not do the water carrier. You can take this off, and then you can just hook this to this. And you can carry this if you need to just zip into the grocery store or something like that, Okay. Cool. All right. So we're going to go ahead and look at everything you need right now to get this going. Should be one.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So now, afterwards, now you'll be able to push that button.
Okay. All right. Okay, you guys. I'm asking you to be patient with me because I'm doing this switching of the camera. So please be patient. All right. Go ahead and take your water. Okay. Again, this fits a 40-ounce tumbler carrier. Now, if you have something bigger than 40 ounces, and I would also suggest that you measure your carrier because sometimes the tops are wider, the bottoms are skinnier, but you can always adjust your pattern to fit your measurements. Okay. Let's take a look at everything that we need for the carrier. Okay. As far as fabric, you only need 3/8 of a yard of fabric. Okay. The pattern comes with your pattern pieces in number 7 and number 8 in your pattern, which is the last page. I'm not sure if you can see that. If I get closer, you see the shape there? That's where our little shape goes under the handle of the bottle. with Velcro and everything, and the back side is the other half. So, of course, like everything, you're going to need to make 2 copies. Copy this side of the pattern, copy that side of the pattern. So it's on one page. If you cut one, you cut into the other. So be sure to make 2 copies, okay? And then you're going to cut it out, tape it together right here. And that gives your piece A, okay? So in the pattern, the pattern pieces go all the way up to the letter P, all right? So there's a lot of little pieces, but it gives you a lot of new techniques to learn, so don't be intimidated by the number of pieces. Also, many of those pieces are webbing cuts, Velcro cuts, binding cuts. I don't do the individual binding cuts. I just keep the binding the length it needs to be, and you just sew it and cut it as you go along, okay? Because we like to carry that sometime this summer. It take us forever if we did that. All right, so let's take a look at the layout. I believe on the first page of your of the handout that you get in the pattern, it'll have the cutting layouts. The top cutting layout is for your fabric, and you can see that big piece, pattern A. You see the circle B, and then this letter C are cuts. Now you can make templates if you like. So you would cut 4.5 by 8-inch templates and lay those out for letter C. And what I mean by a template is on page 6, they're going to give you a template for the bottom B, and it says piece B, and then also for your corners to make the corners of your pocket rounded. So they give you this little template here so you can round out your corners, okay? Now, the way I do it, because I want to make more than just this one time, I turn these little pattern pieces into template using template plastic. It has a grid on it, so I can make sure I'm keeping everything straight, and then I cut it. It's a clear plastic, and you can label it if you want to. But you don't have to use this plastic. You can use old cereal box. You can use old cracker boxes, whatever, something that's firm. I did the same thing for this one too. All right, so that way I can use it over and over and over again. Okay, so that's piece B and C. So this is A. This is piece B. This is piece, this is the corner. Piece C is your corners. Is your I'm sorry, not corners. They are your pocket. Okay, so let's take a look at the pieces. So this is piece A cut out. You're going to cut it out in fabric, and you're going to cut it out in foam or air mesh if you use air mesh. Now what air mesh is, and I'm going to go through all the different interfacings, but what air mesh is thinner than the foam. The foam is a little bit insulating. I do like the foam. Also, the foam is fusible. The air mesh is not. You would then have to, after you cut all these pieces out, then baste them in place all the way around and all of that. Okay, so that's piece A. Piece B, in the layout, they suggest that you cut, I'm sorry, piece B. I got these two backwards. Piece B is the circle, which is the bottom of your carrier. So this is piece B. This is the way they would have it laid out on the fabric. Okay, now piece C, you're going to cut 2 because you have a front of your pocket of this, and you have a back. Okay. Okay, and then piece E and F, these are the same width, which is 2.5 inches. You're just going to cut those right above each other. Okay. And piece D is the gusset. When they say gusset, they mean the gusset of this bag here. So that's what this is here. So let me slide everything over so you can see the layout. C, this is C. You have to cut 2 of these. Now, when we're cutting this out, the fabric is single layer. It's not double layer because you only need 1 piece of each one, except you need 2 pieces of this one because of the front and the back of your wallet. Okay. All right. Any questions about that? You can see from the way this is laid out, I cut these side by side. Now, one other thing I'd like to point out, if you look at the bottom section of your layout, it says air mesh, right? And that means the foam or the air mesh. What air mesh is like a netted fabric that has foam in between. It's not fusible, but it's lighter weight than the foam. You probably see air mesh, like if you ever had a gym bag and it has that meshy kind of netting on the inside, or a suitcase that has that little meshy netty section for your shoes, or unmentionables, whatever. That's a netted mesh, and it comes in a variety of colors, which is nice. So that way, like if I had air mesh, instead of having the white on the inside, I could actually get a pink or a green or whatever other color I wanted, okay, on the inside, instead of just having white. There's nothing wrong with white. You're not really going to see it, okay? But if you want to have a little more versatility in your color and your contrast, then you could get the air mesh. Also, it's a little thinner, so it's a little easier to work with, but it will take time because, again, when you cut that out, you're then going to have to baste around each and every one of these pieces. Okay. All right. Now, I've already made one or two of these. So what I would suggest in changing this pattern, and this is totally up to you, but because I like using the fusible foam, and the foam is very thick and becomes a little hard to bind the edges and all of that, on the inside of this bag, there's a divider fabric in between to divide this pocket from this pocket. In the directions, they suggest that you use the air mesh or the foam. If you're using foam, don't use foam for this section. Use another piece of your face fabric. So I cut 3 of these. This one is not interface. This one on the top is not interface because it's just acting as a divider between it. If you have the air mesh instead of the foam, just cut it out of air mesh just as they have it here. So if you look at the air mesh foam section of the layout, it has 3 number C's, whereas the fabric has 2. I'm doing the reverse. I'm doing 3 of the number C's in the fabric and only 2 in the foam. As you see, I have the foam on these 2 pieces, no foam on this piece. Okay. All right. Moving on to other things that we're going to need. We're going to need 2 2-inch pieces of webbing, 2 8-inch pieces of webbing. I already have one of them sewn on here just to kind of save us a little time. We're going to need a hook and a loop, a soft and a rough part of the Velcro. Okay. And then we're going to need various hardware buckles. So we have the swivel hooks. As you see, we have swivel hooks on. Let me take this off and put it all back together. Okay, we have swivel hooks on our little pouch that's on the front. We have them here. Then we have larger swivel hooks, the 1.5-inch swivel hooks. These are 1 inch. These are 1.5 inches with an 1.5 inch buckle for the strap. Okay, so I'm going to rehook all of this together. All right, you see we have the D-rings. D-rings are there, D-rings are there. I have one already installed right here. So the way this works, we hook on the swivel hook to the D-ring on the front of the bag. Okay, you see how that works? Do I have a reverse? Mind my left-handedness. Okay, and then for the strap, and twist it. We have 2 swivel hooks, and we have the slider where you can make this adjustable. If I need to make it shorter, if I need to make it longer. Okay, and these are 1.5 inches, because you would then use 1.5 inch tape. Okay, so that's quite a bit of hardware we have there. Okay, so we would need these additional items as well. And then, of course, our zipper. Okay, so I'm working with the rainbow finishes. Oops. And zipper pulls. I ran out of my rainbow zipper pull, so I'm just going to use the beautiful butterfly and this other finish for the example. But of course, you normally want all of your hardware to coordinate. All right. So next step. Now, one thing that's nice about this pattern is that they do, if you sign up for their download, you can get these little pattern piece labels. I don't know if you can see that. Is that close enough? It's not focused. Okay, but it says, piece B, piece A, piece C, so that you can keep all of your pieces organized as far as like all of your cuts. So if you go to the Sally Tomato website and ask for you'll see where it says pattern piece labels, and you just put your information in, they send you a download, and you can print it out and then add it to the pieces just to keep yourself organized. Okay. Alrighty. So let's talk a little bit about the interfacings and things. Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing you're going to need, and so there's a lot of pieces here. You're going to need bias tape. You can purchase bias tape. In their examples, they use what's called an elastic binding. It's really soft, really malleable. It's only a 1/2 inch, so you can get into those real tight spaces. You can use that, but you could also use a double fold bias tape, or if you have a coordinating fabric, you could cut like 2-inch bias strips, fold it in half, and we're going to stitch it on and then fold it over. That's what we did. That's what I did here, and also along the top edge here, and then also on the shoulder pad. Okay, and we're going to cover that. All right. Okay, next. You got all these pieces together. Out of the way. Let's talk about the foam. Okay, what I use is this stuff called Flex Foam. Okay, so this is a Pellon brand. It's a fusible flex foam. They have it here. It's So Creative Lounge. So on that piece, you can see the glossier side, or the side you can feel the glue. That's the wrong side. That's the side that you would then glue on to the back side of your pieces, pieces A, B, and C, and all of them. Now, what I did not do, I did not add fusible foam to pieces D, which is your gusset, which is the side pieces there, the top of the shoulder pad, but I did add it to the back of the shoulder pad because you want that to be kind of puffy, Okay, so what I added in that case, I added this is an interfacing, but I used one called Craft Fuse because the weight of the foam is a little heavier than like the weight of like the interfacings that you normally use. Like it's heavier than like a fusible fleece. It's heavier than a thermolam, But you could also just use thermolam instead of foam for this entire pouch part, if you wanted to, because there's really no reason for that to have foam. I can understand the cup having the foam. You want some insulation and all of that. You want to keep your drink cool. Okay, so that's fine. But if you want the loft without all the puffiness, you could also use a thermolam. But I use Craft Fuse on piece E and piece D, which is the top. Piece E is the top of your shoulder pad, which is this little piece here that the strap is running under. This little piece, this didn't need foam. It would be really, really puffy. The last thing I need is something else puffy on my shoulders. Okay, so I wouldn't want two pieces of puff. One piece of puff is fine, because that's going to keep it comfortable so your shoulder doesn't get tired from that heavy water bottle, hanging on your shoulder. Okay, so but this piece E, which is this piece, that's just a heavy interfacing, like a Craft Fuse, the Core Fuse, a TD 931, I think it is in the Pellon interfacings, the heavier weight. And also I did that in piece D. which is the gusset that goes around the side. That doesn't need to be puffy. That just needs to be sturdy to help keep the shape. Okay, but strong enough to hold the layers of the two puffs, the flex foam on the top and on the bottom. Okay, just suggestions, and you can try whatever you like. If you have the air mesh is fine all the way through, but you will have to baste around each and every one of the pieces again. Okay, all right, that's my little spiel on fusibles, on interfacing. Okay, all right, well, let's get started with some sewing. All right, one of the first steps you're going to do now, after you have this fused, if you're using the foam, or if you have it basted, if you're using the air mesh, before you put this on, I have this on just to save us a little step. You might want to go ahead and do some quilting, quilt this, and also quilt one piece of your PC, which is your front pocket, front area of your little pouch. See, this is this, okay? All right, so the reason I did that, if you look at this one, I have this quilted, the cup part quilted, but I was so engrossed in sewing this and everything, I forgot to quilt the front piece here on the pouch. So lessons learned. When I quilted this, I also quilted piece C. Okay, so that way the entire thing has some quilting. You don't have to quilt it. You can just fuse it and make it, and it's fine. But I think it kind of adds a little, you can't really see it because I did the same color as the fabric because I just wanted the indentation. I didn't want the quilting to show too much. It just kind of did a meander. Okay. All right. First step we're going to do, we're going to work with some of our hardware. That away. All right. So we're going to take our 8-inch piece, our two 8-inch pieces. I already have one on here. We're going to thread it through one of our D-rings. And we're going to match the edges on the inside, just like this. Okay. You see? And I kind of wanted to make sure it measures, because it was an 8-inch piece, we're folding it in half. It should measure 4 now. It doesn't have to be exactly in the center, as long as this measures 4 inches, but if you want to be exact, you can bring it right to the center. And it's still 4 inches. And I'm just going to put a little clip just to hold it in place just for a minute. Okay, now in the instructions, it's going to have exactly how far in you need to measure on each side of your piece A to put this. Okay, so on grab a ruler. Now the best thing to do, because this is an odd shape, is to line your top edge up to one of the lines on your grid here. Okay, on this side we're measuring 5 inches. Okay, but we bring it 3/4 of an inch down. So 5 inches in, 3/4 of an inch down, and we pin that in place. Okay, on this other side, we're also going to come in from this edge. Let me trim that. That's irritating. Sometimes when you fuse it, it goes outside of the edge of the shape of the material, and then also I quilted it, so that pushed some of it too. Need my little snippy scissors. All right, let me trim this. It's bothering me. Do the naked. Okay, let's trim that. It's hard. Okay. All right, so again, we're going to go in 2 inches, but 3/4 of an inch down. 2 inches in, 3/4 of an inch down. Okay, and that's from that edge there. And again, I'm going to keep that straight to that. And that's where I'm going to put this one. So I'm 2 inches in. But now I need to make sure from the top of the fold, not from the ring, I'm 3/4 of an inch down. Okay. 2 inches in, 3/4 of an inch down. All right. And then pin that in place. Now we're going to go to the machine and we're going to sew this in place. Now, other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put the Velcro in place. I really prefer to put the Velcro, even though this is in the directions, to put the Velcro in, right after this. I prefer to put on my binding and then put my Velcro on, because then I can have a better gauge of where my Velcro needs to go. Okay. All right. All right. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to stitch this in place. But while we're over there, we're going to also put our binding on. Okay. And I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you can put your binding on. Okay. So let's just go over to the machine, sew this in place. Then we're going to sew on our binding and then sew on our Velcro. Of course, I would normally sew this in with a same color thread, but we're just going to use black so you can see it a little better. I'm going to put on my zipper foot too. So I want to be able to get, let's see, I usually use a 1/4 inch foot. This foot right here is all-purpose foot. It's a little wide for me, but I think I could still manage, even though it's a little wide, for something as tedious as this. Up your foot as much as you can. Center position. All right, and we're just going to straight stitch this all the way around, and then we're going to make a little X just to secure it a little better, secure it a little more. Ooh, that doesn't sound good, does it? That does not sound good. Let's see what's going on with this machine. Ooh. Mm. And you just curl this side up in here until you get it exactly where you want it. Okay, stop with your needle down on the corner, pivot with your needle in the fabric. I can move that clip now. It's just there to hold everything together. My corner, stop, needle down, pivot. Okay, now I'm gonna start making my X now. So I'm gonna come down to make an X from here to here, then there to there, just so it has a little more security. Okay. I'm trying not to stitch on the existing stitch, but it really shouldn't matter if you have the exact same thread. But I'm crisscross here, make an X, and then across the top, I'm just going to keep the edge of my foot to the D-ring. You can always go back if you want to, just to make sure, because that's going to get more stress along the top edge. But you don't want your piece to pull apart, your stitching to pull apart. Okay, So this is, you can see on the pink, you see the indentation, but you don't necessarily see on the black, the one with the black stitching. Okay, so we have that in place. Now let's talk about the binding. There's a couple of ways you could do the binding. If you look, you want to definitely cut your binding on the bias because it needs to be soft enough to go around these edges and all of that if you're cutting your own binding. Okay, if you're purchasing binding, you want to buy double fold bias tape. Okay, so you don't want to cut the strip straight of grain like you would bind a quilt. You know, you want to cut it on the bias. And what double fold means is that, see, usually it's this is folded once, right? Double fold means that it's been folded in and then folded over. So that's a double fold bias tape. Okay. If we look at my sample, we have the binding all the way around. I just liked it because it was like a nice contrast, you know. But if I were to kind of keep it simple, you know, and not worry so much about the finishing and what's coordinating, I could just use this. All right. Now, when you start to sew this, you want to fold in the end. Okay. And we're going to start right on the edge here. And I'm going to clip it. Okay. So let me show you that again. So when you start, you have raw edges here. Okay. So what you want to do is fold it in about 1/4 of an inch. Okay. Then match that folded edge to the raw edge that's intersecting here. And then we're going to start sewing it. And that's going to help us cover both edges. Now, if you were using the elastic that they suggest, you would sew one side on first and then fold it over, then sew the other side. That's the same way that you would do it with, you know, just regular bias tape too. Okay. So we're going to sew this in. Now, if you're a pinner, go ahead and pin, or if you're a clipper, go ahead and clip. You know, you can throw some clips in here, you know, all the way around. If it makes you, you know, it's going to move anyway. But if it helps you control it more, then go ahead and do that. Okay, you see, that's where we're going to sew. We're going to sew that all the way around. And then we get to the other side, we're going to fold it again and finish the edge like that. Okay, I'm not much of a pinner type person, so I'm just going to get started. So, okay, move my clip, I'll walk my needle down. I'm going to try to use, I always like to use one part of my foot as a guide. So I'm going to try to use the inside of my foot here on the edge, and that way I can guarantee that I grab the underside. If I had a 1/4 inch foot on here, I would use that slimmer end of my 1/4 inch foot on the edge, because then that's like an 1/8 inch in. So we want to just grab the edge of the tape, but we will also grab the back side. All right, so. Ooh. If you feel more comfortable with a zipper foot, I would do a zipper foot with this because, you know, you don't have the control of the width of the foot to help control all of your. All right, I'm just going to keep going all the way across. Wind this more. And when you get to the curves, you might have to lift up your foot a little bit just so you can turn it. See how I'm turning the tumbler cover, not the bias tape. Okay. Take your time, especially when you come around those curves. Sorry, is my hand in the way? Okay, when you get to this little dip here, you're going to make like a little fold because it's not quite a corner, but you're going to need to make a crease in order to get around it. You see that little fold there? See that? Because it's coming to a round. Here, we're going to make that little tuck. You can feel the foam. When you have this thick foam that didn't keep my needle down. So used to my machine, keeping my needle down. Okay. Just keep adjusting best as you can. If you have a lot of extra, you might want to trim some of this off because it gets to a point where maneuvering it gets a little difficult. All right. Stop your needle in the fabric, lift it up, slide all the tape up under. When you get to the curves, you want to double check that it's up under there. Keep going. After I come around this curve, we're going to finish off this edge, just like we started this edge. Okay, now we're going to cut it a little bit more because I don't need all that. That's quite a bit much. All right, I'm going to fold it just like we did the other one. You fold 1/4 of an inch or so it's even with this edge here. You lift your foot. You need to have the needle in the fabric. Okay, see, I'm going to finish it off. This little piece right here wants to peek out. Just tuck that back in there. All right. Jesus. All right. So then we have that sewn on. Out. All right. So we have the top of the binding sewn on. Okay. So now we want to go ahead and add in our Velcro while we're here. Okay. To do the Velcro, we've been 1/2 inch in, 1/2 inch down. I like to put my soft side on the outside, so that would be here. Now we already sewed 1/4, all right, 1/2 inch in, and then 2 inches down. So I'm going to take my little ruler, seam gauge, measure 2 inches down, 1/2 inch in, puts me right close to my binding. That's why I like doing the binding. I did one before where I sewed the Velcro and I followed the directions, sewed the Velcro in. When I put the binding on, because I wasn't using that elastic binding, um, I had to take the Velcro out because it was too close. Oh, the other thing is I like to use, just so once I have that measurement right, let me take this off. We're going to do it again. I like to use adhesive just to hold it in place temporarily so before I get to the machine. So 2 inches down is there. 1/2 inch in is right up against my Velcro. My Velcro is right up against my binding. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stitch that in. Then I put the loop side. And when you do the loop side, you want to make sure that's on this side. I'm going to have to go back and stitch some more. Missed a couple places. All right, let's put that there. Is this the same thing? Ends up being a 1/2 inch in. Give me an edge there. All right, and see that's what makes it cover like that. Okay. Oops. I forgot I didn't pin it. Let's measure it again. 2 inches down, right up against my binding. Okay. And we would just stitch that in the same way we stitch these other things. I'm just going to pin it so we don't have to go through stitching this in. Okay. I'm just going to put a pin through there. But you would stitch that in, and you would also stitch it in on this side as well. So we can move on. So those are your beginning steps. Okay. You're going to sew your D-rings on. You're going to sew your binding along your top. Okay. All right. So after that's done, then you want to match your edges here. Right sides together. So all I did was match my right sides together right here. And we're going to stitch that. One here. One thing I would suggest is match it from the bottom first, because this top has gotten a lot of stress from sewing it's gone under a lot of stress from stitching the binding and all that Velcro and all that stuff in. So it's kind of scrunched down on itself, if that makes sense. It's like a little tense up there. So if I match it, and plus the bottom pattern has a shape. So you want to match your bottom edges up, and that's going to give you the shape that you need for the tumbler. All right, now I'm just going to sew 1/4 inch seam. This is 1/4 inch seams all the way around. It's better to sew it this way. So from the top down, from the intersections of your binding down. Edge of the foot to the edge of the fabric is 1/4 inch on this foot. Double check on your machine what's actually 1/4 inch. Yeah. You see how thick that gets? If you have the air mesh, it's a little lighter weight. It's going to be a little heavy. That's where my machine is at. Like that. Okay. Trim all of this. Lots and lots of threads. Okay, so we sewed the seam here. Next thing we're going to do, you can finish the seam by using the binding. So again, we will fold this in, fold this over, finish this edge with the binding. I'm okay not finishing this edge with the binding because I have the foam. You see how thick that foam is. This is only going to make the seam even thicker. What I would recommend is that before you sew all of this, serge this edge, serge this edge and the bottom edge, and also serge your bottom round. That way you have finished edges before you sew it together. Adding this binding in here with the foam makes it very thick, and it definitely isn't going to fit in your in most car cup holders once you add this binding. So it would be a flatter finish if either you zigzag finish this in the bottom edge or serge each one individually in the bottom edge before you sew it together if you want to finish. This foam is so securely fused to this fabric. I don't think I'm gonna have a problem with fraying or anything like that. Okay, our next step, we're going to take this circle B and sew it to the bottom of the tumbler area. Okay, so now one thing about circles, I'm sure many of you that are experienced know, sewers out there, you want to fold it in half. Put your little pin in each side. Or a mark. You can do a mark. A mark is fine, like a pin mark or something. It's going to be in the seam. It's going to fall in the seam. And then do the same thing this way too. Just to make sure that your pins are off. And make sure that you're matching halves to halves. You won't have any excess. This is probably one of the first things you kind of learn when you're sewing. Okay, so that way when I match this to my bottom edge, if I match one of the pins to my seam, and I'm going to keep the seam open because it's so thick. Okay, can you see that? All right, and I have my half pin, so pin this in half. You have pins there and there. Then I fold it in half this way, and I have pins in half there and there. Okay, so now I'm just going to match one of my pins to my seam. I'm going to clip it. I'm going to do the same thing. If I match that to that, then I'll match this edge to this edge. Can you see that? So we're just going to clip it all the way around. Or pin, whichever you prefer to do. Let me turn this around. And the way we're going to sew this, we're going to stand it up and sew it. So I'm going to make sure if I'm clipping that I have all the flat parts of my clips towards the bottom. So it'll lay flat on the sewing machine bed. Oops, that's backwards. I just said it and then I did the opposite. One there. Done. Okay, so you see how that's put together, right sides together. Clipped it all the way around. Okay. Take these pins out. I have to think about them. Find me a nice open section to start sewing. And you see, we're going to stand it up like this and sew all the way around. Now this is where a 1/4 inch foot can come in really, really handy. In fact, I may switch out to zipper foot so I can get close. Kind of zipper foot. Let's just keep this one. Let's just keep the all-purpose on. Take the crookeds with the straights here. Now, of course, it's a circle that we're sewing a straight part to a circle. So in some cases, we're going to have to make small clips just so that we can pull out these edges. So you see how this edge here is stretching, is pushed back? We need to get that a little closer. So when I see that happen, I always like to make a clip, and then that way I can pull this. It'll want to pull closer to the edge because it's been relaxed. That clip relaxes the straightness of that edge so that it'll want to come out and meet the rounder edge. Okay. All right, let's get this going. And you're going to have to take your time and sometimes pull the fabric, pull and clip, pull and clip. So a little closer, still got it. And you're going to have to rotate, cut. Oh, thread came underneath. Always happens when you have your hand right in the perfect place to get that stitch in. The machine wants to come under it. All right, let's get this going. Okay, here we go again. Let's get back on track. I'm going to sew this in place. Open the seam up. It'll let me. There we go. Bring that edge out to the round edge. Keep my seam open. So I use my 6th finger. Now, rotating the tumbler. Stop with my needle down. Rotate. I need to do a clip there. Oh no, there we go. So it's okay without the clip. Remember that bottom has a shape, so it should match in most cases, but sometimes you might have to do a clip here and there just to get that outer edge to match. Okay, keep rotating tumbler. Bring that out to the outer edge. Of course, it finally wants to cooperate when you get closer to the other seam. Keep rotating, pulling. The edges even. Don't want to get a pinch, so you got to keep rotating that. Right. So let's take a look. Can you see how puffy the seams are there with the foam? Very, very puffy. But had we serged these pieces, you wouldn't have to go in and do any kind of finishing or worry about keeping the edges raw. Also, the foam is so puffy and it's fused completely to the edges of the fabric. I don't think you have to be concerned with fraying too much. All right, I'm going to turn this right side out. Tight. I'm using my fingers to go in there and smooth around the seam. And you want to pull on it really tight and see if, anything is just hanging by a thread. Like maybe you might have to go back in because maybe you push it and then you see the foam instead of fabric. Then you have to go in, take some of it out, re-sew it. But this did pretty good. All right, just keep going around, smoothing it with your fingers to make that seam lie the way you want to. All right. So, there we go. Velcro it. See? have our cute little tumbler shape happening here. All right, that wasn't so bad, right? So now comes the fun part. Well, for me anyway. Okay. All right, so don't be intimidated by the number of pieces and all of that with this pattern. You know, at first I was like, whoa, that's a lot of pieces. But it goes, once you start sewing it, the instructions make it go by very, very quick, which is nice. All right. Tangled up here. Okay. All right, so let's go to the next section. All right. Now our next section that we're going to work on is just the outer part of the bag. Okay. So we're going to work on the little coin pouch. So, but this is what we just finished. Let's just take a minute and enjoy that. We made it through. Okay. So it has the Velcro. Of course, your Velcro would be sewn in. I just skipped it to kind of save us some time. Okay. All right. So we have that part done. All right. First thing we're going to do, we're going to take our pieces numbered C. So we have 2 pieces that are back with foam, 1 piece that's lining. Okay, so we're going to keep the lining piece and the other foam piece. We're going to put those to the side for right now. Okay. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to measure down 2 inches from the top. This is the one that's quilted. You know, we did like a meander kind of quilting design on it. That way that'll be on the front of this bag. Okay, so you won't have just the cup part quilted. You have also this part quilted a little bit. You can do straight lines. You don't have to do a meander. It could be straight lines. Okay. All right. Let me get all this extra foam off from the fusing and the quilting. Sometimes it goes over the edge, so you want to keep that even. So when you do these measurements, they're not off. All right, so this is a 2-inch wide ruler. Get a rotary cutter. Take off my PC because I know that's what that is. All right, I'm just going to trim this 2 inches right off the top. Okay, now remember this piece was 4.5 wide by 8 inches long. Okay, so now I need to take my zipper tape, cut me a 4.5-inch piece of zipper tape. And put my zipper pull on the end. Don't have any more of my matching zipper pulls. I have to get some more. Just slide that on and then just kind of pop this open and it'll slide down. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to sew this edge to this edge and this edge to this edge. Okay, for the zipper. All right. Now, one thing I did do on this one, because it was not quilted, I was able to pull back the foam, the 1/4 inch, and take that out so it wouldn't be so puffy. But because I quilted this, it's quilted all the way to the edge, so I can't do that. So I'm going to fold under about 1/4 inch. See, it's very flexible. It's just that it's puffy, you know. You know, a lot of times you want things to be a little flatter when you're dealing with zippers, but you can't always get what you want. All right, so I'm going to fold that over 1/4 inch. Then on this section, which is the continuation of that pattern, I'm going to fold under 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch that in place. And you want to make sure you're matching these edges here. See those edges there? You want those edges to match. Okay, or else we end up having to either take the zipper out, do it again, or trim the size of your pouch. And I like to keep the pouch as big as we can. I think it's nice. Have a reasonable size pouch that you can fit. You can fit your wallet, you can fit your phone in the top and all of that stuff. Because this is going to have 2 pockets. So this is the first pocket. Then we put the gusset on, then we sew the second pocket. All right, and I'm just putting a few extra pins in because of the puffiness. If I didn't have this foam in here, I wouldn't need to do this many pins because the fabric would lay flatter. Okay, do you see what we're doing here? All right, and I'm just keeping the teeth as close as possible. The fold of the fabric as close as possible to the teeth. Then I'm going to use a zipper foot and sew right next to each of the teeth. Now give me about 1/8 inch away from the teeth by keeping the edge of the foot to there. Okay, so we're going to go over there and do that. Other thing I think I'm going to do while we're here, we are going to use our template. Remember this little template? This template is made so that you can round your edges. You see how these are rounded? That's from using this template. So I'm going to sew this in first, and then we'll use the little template to make this round, because we'll match the lining pocket to it and do both of those at the same time. So we'll knock 2 birds out with one stone. Okay. All right, let's go to the sewing machine. Okay. All right, we're going to switch out to the zipper foot. I'm going to look at which way I want the foot to go on. Okay, so I want the needle to be close to there, so I'm going to use this side of my zipper foot. Okay. If you need to pull the zipper pull past your zipper foot, that's fine. Yeah. But for now, I think we're good. So you see I'm keeping, in fact, I think I'm going to move my needle over. Let's see where that lands. Is that close? Trying to find it again and keep going through that. Now I'm going to go back to the center. That's good. Okay. So always kind of check and see where your needle's going to fall, you know, according to your zipper tooth, your zipper teeth. I have a zipper 1 tooth. I'm just keeping it as close as I can to the zipper teeth. Now, when I do the other side, I'm going to do the same direction so that one side doesn't, you know, jut past the other. I want these 2 edges to be even over here. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to do this side, but you see, if I do this side, the needle's way over there. So I'm going to change my zipper to the other side. Okay. All right, sew that in. Same principle. Keep my pull out of the way. I really don't like to see the tape too much on this part. It's okay to see the tape on the pouch part because there's no other way around it. But where you can, try to just get the teeth only shown. Okay, so that's the front of the pouch. Now we're going to go and add the pocket lining, the bag pocket lining, around the edges, and then we're going to sew that together. Okay, let's go to the other, back to the table. Okay. All right, so now I'm taking the piece we've just sewn. I'm not going to trim my zipper just yet. Okay. All right, and then this is my lining piece. You see, there's no backing on it. Okay, there's backing on this one, but no backing on this. This is like a pocket lining. And I'm just going to line these two up. Of course, the pocket lining is going to be a little bit longer now because we've taken up a 1/2 inch here, sewing in the zipper. Okay, but I'm not going to trim that right now. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just going to put a couple of pins in to hold this in place. All right, and now we're going to mark this, or you can just use your template. See, I have this hard template. If I had paper, I wouldn't use a rotary cutter. But since I have this hard template, I'm just going to use this rotary cutter, and I'm going to make my curves just like that. So the way you make the curves is you match the top and the side of the circle, the top edge and the side edge of the circle to the rectangle, and then trim it. And see, and I'm trimming both the lining and this. So these will match perfectly now. I'll go back and trim that excess. I'm not going to worry about that right now because I'm trimming this. So you see, that makes that nice round shape, and then I could trim the rest of that. Okay, so now you see we have that rounded shape. Okay. All right. Now, if you want to, you can go ahead and baste these two together. I'm not a big baster. So what I normally would do, I would just go ahead and go on to putting our gusset on. Okay. And then when I sew the gusset on, that will sew this layer, the top layer, and the gusset onto your pouch. Now let's talk about what the gusset is. The gusset is this strip D. About 1/3 of it is going to be zipper, and then the rest of it is going to be this. Okay, so this is the gusset piece D. Okay, what goes along with piece D is 9 3/4 inches of zipper tape. So you measure off 9 3/4. Okay, now piece D, I didn't use the foam, but I did use the craft fuse. So you see, I have the heavyweight interfacing on the back, not the puffy. See, it's very thin, okay, but it's strong, it's stable. Okay, so I need a zipper pull. Doing my beautiful butterflies. Do the better cut edge. This edge is cut better. Just slide it on, separate it, and it'll fall in place. See? All right. We're going to sew. Now, the reason this is 1 1/4 wide is that's how wide the zipper tape is. Before you cut this piece, because it's a free cut piece, as far as like it's not a pattern they give you, they tell you to cut 1 1/4 by so many inches. I think it's 14 inches or 15 inches. If your zipper tape is wider than 1 1/4, then cut this, the width, the strip D, piece D, whatever the width of your zipper tape is. Okay, so we're going to go to the machine and we're going to sew this edge to this edge. We'll pull the zipper down a little bit and sew this edge to this edge. Now, if you want to, if you feel better about basting around this before we sew this, you can feel free to do that too. But, you know, it's not necessary. Okay, let's switch. Okay. Now put my regular foot back on. Quarter-inch seam. Make sure nothing slipped. Remove. Zipper tape. I'm do it from this side so I can control the zipper tape. On the other end. Okay, got that in there. You can do it a couple of times if you want to, back and forth. Mine's in there pretty good, so I'm not gonna worry about it. All right, same thing on the other end. Go back and go back. Okay, just make sure. Okay, it's nice and tight. So we got the zipper pull. Okay. Now we want to mark the middle of the strip. Now, if you want to, you can do that again, just like we did with the circle. You can do it with straight pins, or you can make a mark with the ink pen because it's not going to be seen. If you mark it on the white, on your interface side, ink pen, or you can just make a really hard crease if you're using the craft fuse because it's very, very firm. It'll fold like paper, But what we're going to do, if you want to put 2 pins in there, see, that's the middle of that. Then I'm going to match that to the bottom edge, the center bottom of my piece here. Okay. And that's going to go all the way around. So we're going to go ahead and throw some clips in. So you see, you don't necessarily have to base that lining section on because you can pin it or clip it in place all the way around. So some pins in here. Won't hurt to pin in some place. Okay. And clip it. Keep clipping. Pin it. I had a pin up here. Replace the pin I had right there. And when you come across here with these rounded edges, you might have to flip the zipper tape a little bit. I'm really not like a big pinner type person or clipping kind of person or finishing this in any kind of way, But what I would recommend is that you start below the zipper on not where the pull is, but the opposite side, okay? And the reason for that is that you could sew this whole thing could shift, and then you have extra left over, and we could create a fold and just keep sew it like we do with seat cushions, things like that. So then you don't have to take it apart and all of that. If you start below, that way you can move all your excess to the end, okay? So I'm going to start sewing below the end of the zipper. Other thing is I'm going to use my zipper foot because when I get to this section, that's going to be zipper. So that way I can get close. I may not be able to get as close, but I can get closer because I have this zipper foot on, a narrow foot on. It'll work even with a, we call it a 1/4 inch foot would be fine too. Little clips, few clips, not big clips, very light clips. Come around that curve so we don't get any pinches. And this is the other way end up getting a little excess over on this side, because if you clip, it's making this, it's not necessarily making it longer, it's just that it's giving it a little more ease. And that ease kind of adds up as you go around. Take these out. You can see the difference there from my pinning and what happened when I clip. You know, I already got a little excess there, you know. So I'm just going to keep going, but we're going to clip a little just to make it smooth around here. Okay. Stop the needle down. It up. See, move it around. Still not getting a pinch. You want to keep that as smooth as possible. Keep these edges even as possible. These outer edges. Okay. Making sure we're getting all three edges. We have the gusset, the front of the pocket, and the pocket lining all together. We're sewing them at the same time. Okay. When you come to the zipper, just make sure those teeth are together. You don't want to sew it with the teeth separated. You want to make sure that the teeth are together. If you can pull your pull closer, if you don't have a big pull, you can pull it closer to the teeth. That would be fine too. Okay. Now we're sewing the zipper on. Another zipper caught under the foot. There we go. Now just keep rotating the fabric as you come around the curve, but also keeping the edges to the edge of the curve. I don't know if you can see that. Oops, my needle wasn't down. So used to my machine, the needle stays down. Pull the zipper past the foot. Waited too late to clip. Hopefully I can still get it in there. Coming down the side. All right, so you see, look the difference. This is the difference. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fold this up, and then I'm just going to stitch over it. And it just creates a little pocket for your zipper. Or you can take it out and cut this, match it, then resew it. These kind of things happen when you sew curves, and you got two different types of materials. You got the zipper band, and the cotton fabric. So you see that creates our little gusset on one side. Oh, okay. Other thing I want to mention is that you want to make sure that, you know, when you put your zippers in, that they're on the same side. So you see, I have both of the zippers closed, and both of the pulls are on the same side. Okay. You wouldn't want to have one zipper on the side, one zipper on there, because that way it's a little confusing when you start to use it, opening and then closing it. Okay. All right. Now we're going to put the back piece onto this, and then the zipper, this little pouch is pretty much done. Okay, but there's a few steps we have to do before we do that. We want to trim the zipper first. So we can trim that now. Okay, and we're going to put this to the side just for a second because we're now going to work on the last part of the back, which is, we have some hardware still to add. And before we put this on, we need to put those last couple of D-rings on, stitch that on, and then stitch the back to this, and then our pouch is done. Okay, so we're going to switch over to back to the mat. Okay. Now remember, we had rounded these edges on the other one, so we have to do the same thing to this one in order for it to all match. Scissors. And again, I'm trimming all of this extra foam that has stretched out from fusing it. So I'm going to trim all this extra white off. All I should see is my fabric. So now I'm going to use my little template. Cut the circles. Now, of course, you could have cut this at the same time we did the other two. But, it's a template, so it should match. Anyway. Okay, so now we have rounded edges on this one as well. Matching the circle edges to the straight edges, and then I'm cutting the curve. Okay. Remembering that with this piece here. All right, now we need to take our 2-inch webbing pieces, and we need to wrap them around a couple of D-rings. Oh, actually, it's these rings. The swivel hooks. See, on the back side. That's what we're doing now. We're attaching these 2 hooks to the back of the pouch. Okay. So we'll do that. Now for this measurement, let's double check what the measurement is. 1.25 inches down. So I'm going to get my ruler, measure 1.25 inches down, stitch it in place. Do the same thing for the other side. This is very similar to making the pouch that we did for the everyday tote. I like that little pouch we put on the inside of that tote. That was really cute. 1.25 inches down. Let's just look bigger. Okay. All right, and we'll stitch that in place. I'm sorry I'm going over on time, but there's a lot of little steps. Okay, but I don't necessarily have to do this part. Okay, but you see, we're going to stitch that, then we're going to stitch the front to the back. Okay, and then we have our pouch. Okay. All right, so now we can we can attach our pouch because we haven't been distracted. Attach our pouch using the swivel hooks, attach it to the D-rings on each side of your tumbler cup holder. Okay, and that's how that looks. Okay. All right. One last thing. How do you do the strap? And I know that they have the directions very clearly. It's very similar to all the steps that we've already done throughout this process. Okay, so our last two pieces, piece F and piece E, okay, you're going to bind piece E, which is this. You're going to put binding on each side, okay, and then you're going to attach it to this, which is piece F. You're going to use your template before you attach it. You're going to use your template, round off these corners like we did the other ones, like we did on the pouch. We're going to make all of this round and not square, okay, on all four, just like we did the pouch. Then you're going to sew binding all the way around it, and then you have this finished shoulder pad, okay. The last thing we're going to do, we are going to put your adjustable buckle and your swivel hook on. And this is very easily done with two swivel hooks and your buckle. Okay? So in order to do that, you have a 54-inch long piece of binding. Okay? And what you're going to do first, you put webbing. Oh, thank you. Webbing. Thank you. You're going to weave that in between that middle bar on your hardware. Okay, so you see it's like 3 bars. You're going to weave this, loop it over the middle bar. Loop it over. Okay, you want to burn these edges. If you have polyurethane or nylon, burn the edges. If you have cotton, don't put that in the flame. Just stitch it down, okay? What I did, I folded mine under, stitched it, okay? Next thing you're going to do, I'm going to put a pin there. I'm not going to stitch it. I'm going to take time to do that. Okay, so you see you have that on there like that. Okay, next thing you're going to do on the other end, I'm just going to cut a little piece of this. This will be 54 inches. If you need to make it longer, you know, do that. Okay, so on this end, I'm just going to make a loop on one of my swivel hooks. Okay, now I need to make sure this isn't twisted. You don't want it like this. You want it flat. Okay, and you want to go over and under your adjustable brace. Okay, you see that? And then on the other end, you're just going to weave that through your other swivel hook, and you're going to stitch that in place. Okay, and then we just slide it, stitch it, okay, and then you just slide it through your shoulder pad, and then that's that. You just attach it to your cup holder. What's this called? It's called a tumbler carrier. Your large tumbler carrier. It's supposed to be a perfect fit for the Stanley 40-ounce carriers. But again, measure it to make sure that it fits. And that's all of the steps. Thank you so much for joining me for this this project. I know there's a lot of little steps, but it's a big reward at the end.
Well, thank you, Candace.
You're welcome, Cecily. I'm sorry I went over, but
No,
it's a lot of little steps.
no, and don't worry about that at all. You know, but especially when we have two pieces like that, you know, and we don't have another activity right after. So
Okay.
Go ahead, finish
Okay.
I'm sure people were happy that you got a chance to go through both pieces.
Grow both pieces.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We did have a couple questions about what's in the kit. So the fabric is going to be the same. We're going to be putting in the
double fold bias tape.
Yep, the double fold bias tape. It'll have all the hardware, the zippers. What did we decide? Do we want to do the foam or the other?
Or the air mesh.
Yeah.
I think the foam. I like the foam because you save time because you fuse it.
Okay.
You don't have to base around all these alphabetical numbers.
Got it. All right. So there's that. We'll put the foam in the kit as well as your webbing as well. So the kits and the patterns are on pre-order. We'll be shipping them out in about 2 weeks. So if you want to make your Casablanca and take it to your next outing, you want to go ahead and get it. So Thank you again,
No, thank you.
Candace, and
You're welcome.
we'll see you. Oh my gosh, what do we have next?
Saturday, virtual
Right?
dress.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Candace is leading the next sip and sew. We're making the virtual halter dress. And I feel like I'm doing something else. Oh, my new members. I'll see you all today. We have a new member welcome call. And then tomorrow we have, is the 25th is tomorrow?
Yes.
The 25th is tomorrow. I'll be doing a subscription live plus showing some new Ghana batiks that I just got. I know.
I'm staying out of there. I am not going to the back room. It's too pretty.
Look, this new set, I was just like,
Very dangerous.
yeah, I got my piece.
Beautiful.
I pulled out 3 pieces at the beginning, and 1 went to me and 2 went to Paulette. The first 3 pieces. So, yeah, we have so much in store for you all this week. Oh, and Friday, Rakisha. Now, if you thought about, I don't know what your stash looks like at home, but Rakisha's stash is,
I heard it was enormous.
massive. So much so she's doing a de-stash live on Friday, where she's going to be pulling out her stash that is bustling over in her home. But I got a chance to I got some denim from her, and a bunch of people from the retreat got a few pieces. But there's so much fabric that I was like, Rakisha, do a live on Friday so that you can help de-stash and get your fabric out to the world.
Yes, okay. Pieces too.
And yeah, so you saw that on
I
tape.
saw it.
That's
all.
all.
Come in here with blinders.
So anyway, we have a very busy week, and I can't wait to see you all again. So thank you all so much for joining in. All right, bye bye. All right.